What's up, Chaos? Welcome back to House Parties. We are continuing our series, Asking for a Friend, where you guys submitted something like 80 questions about dating and relationships. And hopefully you were at Rush last week because there was an awesome panel of awesome people who stood on that stage and answered some of those questions. But they couldn't even, the time they had, they didn't even have a chance to answer all the questions. So for the next few weeks, I thought I would bring my amazing wife, Michelle, who's smarter than me in relationship things, and we would just work through some more questions, as many as we can, for you guys to help shape the way we date and the way we do relationships and our walk with Jesus. Cool?
Cool.
You guys submitted questions about a ton of different aspects of relationships, and one area we want to talk about that we got a lot of questions. We want to start off with this. What does it look like dating and following Jesus? Dating and knowing Jesus. What does that look like? How can it happen well? What does the Bible say about it? You guys had a ton of questions about that. And so that's what we want to kick off our whole series, our house parties, talking about. First things first, the word dating, not in the Bible. The concept of dating, not in the Bible. Nobody was dating each other in the Bible. They had arranged marriages. So you can toss that out there. But here's the thing. What the Bible doesn't say specifically about dating, it has a lot to say about how we, as a follower of Jesus, should approach dating. So we want to talk about how our walk with Jesus impacts our whole life, not just a part of our life, and that whole life includes the way we date and the way we do relationships. All right, so the first thing I want to ask you, Michelle, is as we were dating, okay, Michelle and I had a different past of dating and different people, obviously, but while we were dating, what would you say, what are some things we did, you think, in our relationship that helped keep Jesus as the center and the focus?
I think they weren't separate. So I didn't have just this separate relationship with Jesus that I didn't talk about with Dan, and I didn't have this relationship with Dan that I didn't talk about Jesus or where I was at in my walk spiritually. So I think thinking that they have to be separate, that they can't be together, invite that in. If they don't know Jesus, still invite them into those conversations. But for us, it was easy because we were going to school where you were majoring to be a student pastor, and while I'm not a pastor, I do have a Bible degree, so I knew what I was getting into. So yeah, I think that was one way we were just excited to talk about what we were learning. I think we didn't put each other over our relationships with Jesus. We did not idolize one another. We were not the end-all, be-all. It wasn't like, I didn't idolize you above God. You were not my God per se. I had that space reserved, and then you came below that, and you were adamant about that being the same for you. So in that way we didn't put each other on these pedestals, and then we idolized each other, and then that was the main focus. Don't want to lose this person, got to put all my effort and energy into this. And so I think that's a good way not to make it be the entire focus, because if that's not your main priority and your relationship with God is, then that's how you do that.
Yeah, I think, and that's really smart. I think I probably teetered sometimes with maybe in our relationship, like we all do, with making some parts more important than the other. But I think the truth is that other people make really, really crappy gods, and only God makes a good God to follow. And so when our priorities are right, I think that makes a huge difference. That's a good one. I think it was, you said a little bit about this, I think it was huge that we just followed Jesus together. My walk with Jesus wasn't your walk with Jesus wasn't my walk, but we would do things like, we were going to church together, and while we were dating, we were serving at student ministry stuff together, and we had journals together that we wrote in separately, and we had our own devos together, and we had stuff like that.
Classes together.
Yeah, we had classes, so we were learning and growing together in our walk with Jesus, also apart. So I think that was really important. Here's the thing about dating in our walk with Jesus. We were talking about this a lot, that our walk with Jesus isn't one part of our life, and then school is another part, and dating is another part, and our family is another part. Our walk with Jesus, not to use a fancy word, but transcends every part of our life, and that includes our dating relationships. So when you're looking to have a relationship with someone, to date, to get to know them, to build a friendship and a relationship, if your walk with Jesus, like Michelle said already, is the priority number one, and to them, a walk with Jesus or church or their relationship with God isn't even remotely a priority, that's going to be a really tough starting spot for a relationship, I think.
Yeah, definitely. They can be supportive, but if they don't see the value in it, then there will be times where there could be comments made about oh, you put that before me, or that's not a huge deal. And then eventually it'll feel like you're trying to force somebody else to value what you value or make important what you think is important. it's not that it can't be done. It's just it's a struggle. Like you don't want to have to make someone.
You don't want to, like, if this is your priority, you can't force it to be someone else's.
Yeah, and it's a struggle to try to get someone else to support that long term.
Yeah.
They can be supportive at first, but eventually you can't fake it that long that they don't care about that. They're not going to support you. They're not going to be with you on it, and that can be lonely and that can be challenging.
There is this concept though, right? We're like, man, I really, really like him, or I really, really like her. I know they don't give two craps about church, or I probably shouldn't say craps and church in the same sentence, but it happened. They probably don't, they might not care about church, or they don't know Jesus yet. But man, tell you what, we're gonna go on some dates and I'm gonna pull them towards Jesus. And okay, I'm not gonna say that's never happened. I know there's people who have dated and one person loves Jesus and the other doesn't, and eventually that person grew to love Jesus. But to me, it's like you're playing like a kind of a dangerous game there. I mean, I think more often than not, what happens with someone in one side of a relationship who really cares about walking with Jesus and one side who doesn't care, what usually ends up happening is both get pulled towards the not care, right? Like my relationship with Jesus is no longer a priority. My community at church is no longer a priority. Surrounding myself with my small group who loves me and pushes me to Jesus is no longer a priority. This person becomes the priority. And I think that's really what it comes down to. When we're walking with Jesus and we're dating other people and building these relationships, even friendships, I think what Michelle said is spot on. Like our priority has to always be our walk with Jesus. And if we're growing in that, that's going to speak into our relationships and change how we view them and how we approach them and how we act in them. Hey, one of you had a really, really good question, which I think we've been talking about the whole time, which is why you guys had some really, really awesome questions. And one person put it like this: how do I have a healthy relationship while staying faithful to God? What are your thoughts?
I think it actually is true if you send the sentence back the other way. So staying faithful to God will result in a healthy relationship. Because the more you draw closer to God, the more things of God look better. And so then in your relationship, you will want to have a more godly looking relationship because you yourself are trying to be more godly. And so things that are, sinful or bad, you won't want to do those things because you're
following Jesus. And I think you're spot on. I think if you are following God and you're faithfully trying to grow in your walk with Jesus, and you're in a healthy relationship, the other side of that relationship is going to want you to faithfully follow Jesus and grow in your walk with Jesus. And you're going to want them to grow. And I know it's kind of like a cheesy thing, but like as you both grow in your walk with Jesus, you grow together. And I think that's when the best relationships are. And yeah, you might be thinking, okay, look, well, I'm in 8th grade, like I'm not like proposing next week. I get that. But at the same time, like in 8th grade, again, I think it just comes down to when we're talking about our walk with Jesus and our dating relationships to prioritize our walk with Jesus, which is hard because the person sitting next to me or across from me or the person I'm on a date with, like is here and I can see them and like they're physically with me. And it's a lot easier to like think about that relationship more often than I think about this one I have with my Creator and my Savior. But I think the one with my Creator and my Savior is so much more important, and the growth there is so much more important than just like a dating relationship. And so I think, again, to stay faithful to God and have a healthy relationship, you just have to, again, I think it's just priorities.
I think even when Dan makes the point about you're in 8th grade, you're not proposing next week, so why take this seriously? I'll take this seriously later. We talked a little bit this on the panel, but you can't expect just to wake up one day and be a person that knows how to follow Jesus and just know what to do the right thing every single time when you're confronted with the right choice and the sinful choice. And so you're getting tools now to learn how to navigate that as you get older. So like right now, 8th grade, may not be the person you marry, but you're still learning how to be faithful to God, and those relationships eventually that potentially could be more serious. You've now set your boundaries. You've now set up what your walk with God looks like, and therefore, hey, this is how I want my dating relationship to look like. So these are just ways to equip you so that way you don't get to the time when it is, hey, I want to find someone to spend the rest of my life with, and you don't have the right tools and right boundaries set up to do that.
That's good. Another one said this. Another person asked, how do I know he truly loves God and me? And I would say this, you can see it pretty clearly just in action. I think the Bible talks about, right, the fruit of our growth, the fruit of our life will show that we are obeying and following Jesus, right? If we love God, we'll obey his commandments. Jesus says that, right? So I think if you see someone and at church they act one way, but man, when you're on a date or when you're hanging out at school, they're a totally different way. I think that's going to tell you a lot about their walk with Jesus too. And not to say you'd like ditch them or dump them, but I just mean you want to grow in the same way together. And so that's what you're shooting for. So, and here's the thing. I think it all boils down to this, that God designed us for relationships. He designed us to have friendships and relationships, and someday, like when you get old, like marriage or whatever, or maybe you're young. I don't know, there's some young people who get married too. But listen, the truth about relationships is our dating relationships should bring us closer to Jesus, not push us farther away. And I think we should look for someone to date who will help push us towards Jesus as opposed to anything else. And so that's how we're designed. We're designed for relationships with each other, person to person. And those relationships in the right community and in the right setting with the right priorities should help us grow in our relationship with the Creator. So we'll wrap it up like this. It doesn't go, just a reminder, it doesn't go my relationship with Jesus and then the other areas of my life. It goes relationship with Jesus is priority number one, and everything else falls underneath. And everything else has changed because of that. Any finishing words?
No, you're doing great.
Any wise words?
I'm so proud of you. I love you.
I love you too. That's pretty great. Great job, Shelby. How about Shelby on the panel, everyone? Let's all clap for Shelby on the panel. What a host. What a host. And director. And producer. And cinematographer. Okay,
Show stopping.
wow.